Hi class, Mrs. Calvi here. We are going to be talking about estimating decimals. And estimating means an answer that is close to the exact answer, all right? It is not the exact answer, but it is close to the exact answer. So, for example, I have a problem here on the board, 3.92 plus 6.48, and I'm actually telling you to estimate or round to the ones place. All right, so I'm going to underline the ones place in both of my numbers. So I'm going to underline the 3 because that's the ones place and the 6 because that's the ones place. I'm drawing my arrow to the right for both of them. So we should know now if the number that your arrow is pointing to is a 5 or higher, the number you underlined goes up 1. If the number that your arrow is pointing to is less than 5, your underlined number stays the same. Everything else becomes a 0. Okay? So in this case, 9 is a 5 or higher, so that tells me my 3 here is going to go up to a 4. Okay? Technically, everything to the right would become a 0, but we don't need to put that because we don't need to write decimal 00. It's not necessary. All right? So now, for my 6.48, the arrow is pointing to a 4. That is less than 5, so that's telling me my 6 is staying. So I'm dropping down my plus sign. My 6 is staying. I can technically write decimal 00, but it's not necessary. So when I look to estimate this problem, my final answer would be 10. Okay? So if we were to actually add the actual number, if we were to add 3.92 and 6.48, the actual answer should be close to 10. That's the whole point in estimating. So 2 and 8 gives me 10. 1 and 9 gives me 10. Plus 4 gives me 14. Drop down the decimal. 1 and 3 gives me 4. 4 and 6 gives me 10. So the actual answer is 10.40, and our estimate is 10. So our estimate is close, so that looks good. All right, let's try another one. Okay, so this problem here, we are rounding. I'm saying we're rounding to the hundredths place. So let's review place value. All right, so to the right of the decimal starts my tenths, hundredths, thousandths, 10,000ths. Remember, all numbers to the right of the decimal end in THS. Okay? So you have to remember all numbers to the right of the decimal end in THS. All right, so I'm going to round both of these to the hundredths place. So I'm going to underline the hundredths place in each number. So the 3 is in my hundredths place, and the 3 is in my hundredths place. I'm drawing my arrows to the right. For this one, the 5 is going to tell me that this 3 becomes a 4. So I'm keeping the 8, I'm keeping the decimal, I'm keeping the 6, and the 3 becomes a 4. So keeping the 8, the decimal, the 6, and now this becomes a 4. Okay? It's not necessary to put zeros to the right. So now this 9 tells me that this 3 becomes a 4. So the 5 is staying, the decimal is staying, the 0 is staying, and the 3 becomes a 4 now. I'm going to drop down my subtraction sign. The 5 stays, the decimal stays, the 0 stays, and now the 3 becomes a 4. So now this is the subtraction problem I would be doing, okay? So I'm going to rewrite it on the side here. So 8.64, and I am subtracting 5.04. So remember, this is going to be an estimate. It's not the actual answer because we rounded or estimated the original numbers. So 4 minus 4 gives me 0. 6 minus 0 gives me 6. Drop down my decimal. 8 minus 5 gives me 3. So my estimated answer is 3.60. And I'm actually putting that 0 because it told me to round to the hundredths place. And this 0 is the hundredths place. So I'm keeping the 0 there. Okay. So now many of you might say, well, do I have to have the 0 there? Don't they equal the same thing? So this is read as 3 and 60 hundredths. If I didn't put the 0, it would be 3.6 or 3 and 6 tenths. And yes, these two are equal. They're equivalent. But because the problem said to round to the hundredths place, I want you to have a digit in the hundredths place, even if it's a 0. Okay, so let's try another one. Okay, so for this problem, I want to estimate or to round to the nearest whole number. Okay, so whenever you see that it says to round to the nearest whole number, it means I don't want a decimal. So that means I'm really rounding to the ones place. So whenever it says to round to the nearest whole number, you're going to underline the ones place. It's telling us we don't want a decimal. Okay, so here, the 2 is telling me the 6 is staying. So the 1 is staying, the 5, the 7, and the 6 are staying. Drop down my subtraction sign. Here, the 5 is telling me the 0 is going to become a 1. So it's going to stay as 151. Okay, so then I would go ahead and subtract these two. I would take 1,576 and I would subtract 151. 151. So 6 minus 1 is 5. 7 minus 5 is 2. 5 minus 1 is 4. Bring down my 1. So my final answer would be 1,425. So don't forget, if it says round to the nearest whole number, you're underlining the ones place and rounding. All right? Okay, another type of estimating is it's called using compatible numbers. So if I wanted to estimate 72.77 divided by 26.14, I can use something called compatible numbers. I'm going to make each of these numbers something that will make it easy to divide. So for example, 72.77, I'm dividing by 26.14. Well, if I make this 75, and I make the 26.14 25, so they're still kind of close. This is only 3 off, even less than 3, and this is about 1 off. But I know I can do 75 divided by 25 pretty easily. Think of money, right? 75 cents divided by 25 cents. Well, or how many 25s are in 75? And the answer is 3. Okay, so compatible numbers means to change the numbers they gave you to something that's close that doing the math would be easy. All right, let's try one more like that. Okay, so let's say I was multiplying 26.76 times 2.93. I want to use compatible numbers. So I know mentally I can probably do this in my head. If I change the 26.76 and I make that 25, I can multiply that and change this 2.93, make that 3. That's pretty close. Again, thinking about money, 25 times 3 gives me 75. So an estimate of 75. And if I were to actually do the multiplication, 26.76 times 2.93, it would be close to 75. All right? So using compatible numbers means changing the numbers they gave you to something close that you can pretty much do mentally in your head. Easy mental math. All right? Okay. The last method of estimating is called front-end estimation. Basically what that is, it's just you taking the whole number. So just dropping your decimal. So just taking the whole number, you're not rounding, you're not doing anything but just taking the whole number, dropping your decimal. So in this case, I would then have 9 plus 22 plus 8. And I add those and I would get an answer of 39. Okay, front end estimation is pretty easy. You drop your decimal. You just take the whole number from each number and do whatever operation it is they're telling you to do. In this case, it was addition. All right, that is it for now, and I will talk to you soon.